Factorials. For any positive integer n factorial is defined to be n times n minus 1 times n minus 2, and keep going until you get down to 1. So what that means is if we were going to look at something like 5 factorial, it would equal 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And if we multiply it out, we find that we get 120. Or 3 factorial is 3 times 2 times 1, which would equal 6. Sometimes even with larger numbers, we can do the arithmetic by hand. For example, suppose you had 8 factorial divided by 6 factorial. I don't actually have to determine the product of 8 factorial. I know that's 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1 over 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And we can see that the canceling would happen, and we end up with just 56. And of course, if the numbers were larger, maybe you wouldn't choose to multiply or show all of this. For example, maybe if we saw 10 factorial divided by 8 factorial, we would think of this as 10 times 9 times, well, now we have 8 times 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. That's just 8 factorial. Divided by 8 factorial in much the same way that this was 6 factorial over 6 factorial. And then we could do the canceling this way. And we would get 90. I want to show you something else, just looking at some arithmetic here with some factorials that I've already written out for you. Suppose that we were looking at this. 5 factorial divided by 5. Now in this case, I wrote out the entire product. 5 factorial divided by 5 gives us this. The 5's cancel, and notice we have 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, which is 4 factorial. Now 4 factorial divided by 4 gives you 3 factorial. 3 factorial divided by 3 gives you 2 factorial. 2 factorial divided by 2 gives you 1 factorial. So if we were to continue the pattern one further, notice on the right-hand side, we would have 0 factorial. And what is often considered a surprising result, we'd have 1 factorial divided by 1 here, which is 1 divided by 1, which equals 1. We define 0 factorial to be 1. Now, often people have trouble believing that. Oh, I didn't quite show it there. There you can see it. All right, our 1 factorial divided by 1 giving us this 1, which equals 0 factorial. Let's look at a calculator and see our calculator use with factorials. Scientific calculators have them programmed in. You'll need to find them on your calculator. Sometimes they're over one of the buttons down here. On this particular calculator, the factorial is under the probability menu, this PRB. Let me come in a little bit closer so you can see it. So I'm going to show you a 7 factorial. Let's have the calculator calculate 7 factorial. So in other words, it will calculate 7 times 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So we don't have to type all of that in. We'll use the factorial button. I'm pressing the PRB button. It's because factorials do get used in probability very often. So I'm selecting enter. There's 7 factorial on display. Press enter, and we find that 7 factorial is 5,040. Factorials get very large very quickly. This was just 7 factorial. Let's type in 20 factorial. 20, it's under my probability menu. I'm scrolling over to the factorial, so I have 20 factorial on display, and press enter. You might not be able to see this, but it says 20 factorial is equal to 2.43, and there are more decimal places, times 10 to the 18th power. So if you were going to write this as a decimal, you would need to move the decimal place 18 places to the right. In fact, these numbers get so large so quickly when you're using factorial. If you have 70 factorial, let me come over here and press enter. Notice it's an overflow error. Many of our calculators only go up to 10 to the 100th power. You have to stay actually smaller than this. So we know that 70 factorial is actually greater than 10 to the 100th power. If you try it on your phone, see how far your phone can calculate a factorial. I found that some people have phones where 70 factorial is not a problem. See what the limit seems to be for your calculator. But let me show you on another, what would I say, try it on your phone. Let me try it on another calculator because I want you to see another one. This is a graphing calculator here. But I just want to show you the factorial here. If I wanted to do 9 factorial, for example, here's my 9. On this particular calculator, the factorial is underneath the math menu, so you would push on the math, and then it's over here in probability again, and notice number 4 is the factorial button. So we could find that 9 factorial is equal to 362,880. So your phones, if you have a smartphone, will have that factorial button on it. I encourage you to experiment with that, but do make sure that you find your factorial on your calculator. Scientific calculators already have them programmed in. So I hope you practice some by hand and some with your calculator.